Time sure flies. We're already on Chapter 6, Lesson 1, Addition with Unlike Denominators. Here it's going to ask you how to use fraction strips to find the sum. Write your answer in simplest form. But for this lesson, I'm not going to go over that at this moment. I'll show you fraction strips another time. Right now I'm going to show you the procedure of these things. And what I mean by that is we're going to be looking at the denominators, making sure the denominators are the same. As always, before I could jump into certain lessons, there are times where I have to review certain things. And one thing I want to review are multiples, factors, and those kinds of words, because this lesson and this, Go Math in general doesn't, for 5th grade, have any review on that. In 4th grade, there's I think 1 or 2 chapters dedicated to it. And here we're just jumping right in. So, I want to review the word factors and multiplication. Like, let's say 3 times 7. The two numbers that we're multiplying are called factors, okay? And the answer to our multiplication problem, which 3 times 7 is 21. You use your reference, your cheat sheet if you need to. 3 times 7 is 21. You could repeatedly add 3 plus 3 plus 3 plus 3 7 times. This answer is your product. Now in here, I'm going to be asking you to find your least common multiple. If you want to be able to find your least common multiple, let's break down what that word means. Least means your smallest. Common means the same. And multiple is going to be the product of certain answers. So let's say I want to find the least common multiple between two numbers. Let's, for instance, because they did 2 and 4 here, let's say I want to find the least common multiple for 2 and 4. Least common multiple means that you're comparing two things. So we're comparing the multiples for 2 and 4. And when we're saying the least common multiple, we're looking for the smallest number that they both have the same in terms of their multiples. To find the multiple, you'll start with your 2's as one of your factors, as your first factor. And when you look at your 2's cheat sheet, you could see that the factor is always 2 in the Touch Math multiplication cheat sheet, whatever you want to use. When you multiply it and you find the multiples of 2, what you're doing is you're multiplying it by all the different possibilities. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And this list can continue. You can multiply by 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. But for purpose of this, we'll stop at 10. When we're doing the least common multiples, what you're listing out are saying the answers. 2 times 0 is 0. That's not a multiple. We'll start at 1. 2 times 1 is 2. That is the first multiple. 2 times 2 is 4. That is the next multiple. So what we're doing is we're finding the factors of the 2, and we're multiplying it by 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 by other factors to find the answer, the products. And those answers, these reds that we have, 0, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, are its multiples. So the multiples of 2 are 2, 4, 2 times 3 is 6, 2 times 4 is 8, 2 times 5 is 10, 2 times 6 is 12, 2 times 7 is 14, and so forth. And we can keep going if we wanted to. For 4, we're going to find its multiples. And to find the multiples of 4, we're going to look at the 4's cheat sheet, and we're going to multiply it by other factors, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and so forth. And of course, as I said, it can go farther than 10, but we don't have to for purpose of this assignment. And we're going to list them. We'll start with 4 times 1. 4 times 1 is 4. 4 times 2 is 8. 4 times 3 is 12. 4 times 4 is 16. 4 times 5 is 20, and so forth. Now what we're going to do now is we're finding the smallest common multiple. We were able to list out the multiples. The way that we're able to do it is we found the 2's for the 2's, And we listed all the answers, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14. We multiplied 2 by 1, 2 by 2, 2 by 3, 2 by 4, 2 by 5, 2 by 6, 2 by 7, so forth. For the 4s, we did the same thing. We found the 4s, and we multiplied it by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and the answers are the multiples. Now, we're going to underline all the numbers they have in common. So, do they both have a 2? No. Do they both have a 4? Yes. So, underline them. Do they both have a 6? No. Do they both have an 8? Yes. Do they both have a 10? No. Do they both have a 12? Yes. Do they both have a 14? No. Okay, so here you could see we have common multiples. They're 4, 8, and 12. Common meaning the things they have the same. They don't both have a 2, so we couldn't underline it. They both don't have a 6, so we couldn't underline it. Now what we're going to do is find the least one. And what we're going to do is we're going to circle the least number. So is 12 the smallest number that we underlined? No. Is 8 the smallest number we underlined? No. 4 is. So 4 is our least common multiple. Now I hope this was a good refresher because like I said, you know, when we do Go Math for 5th grade, we don't have any lessons on multiples. We don't have any lessons on factors and things. And so before we can even start this lesson, learning how to find the least common multiple is going to be essential. Now we're going to start number 2, actually, and I'll show you how we're going to use least common multiple when adding unlike denominators. Hold on just a moment. I'm going to start with number 1, which they've already did for us, but I usually start with so that you understand where they're coming from. And the first thing they did here was 1/2 plus 3/4. Another reason why I'm starting with this one is because I don't love the way that they showed their work, and I'm going to ask you to do it slightly different. Here what they did was they just wrote everything left to right, and they didn't really tell where they got these numbers from. And so for ours, what I'm going to ask you to do is, you know, here's the problem. I'm going to ask you to rewrite it going up and down, which is vertically. So we're going to take 1/2 plus 3/4. And the reason why I want you to write it vertically is because soon enough, within these lessons, we're going to be regrouping and things like that, and it'll be easier when we have a whole number here if we work up and down. That being said, from 1/2 plus 3/4, I already see a problem. And the problem is that we have 2 different denominators. The denominator is the bottom number. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by circling the denominators, the bottom numbers. So here's our fraction 1/2 plus 3/4, which we got because that's the equation. And then what I did was I circled the bottom numbers, which were the denominators. D staying down, D as the denominator, the bottom. And what we want to do is we want to have the same denominator. And the way to find the same denominator is by finding the least common multiples. So I'm going to take 2 and 4 like I already did up here and do 2 and 4 and find the least common multiple. And since we've already found that the least common multiple is 4, that number is going to be our new denominators. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw an arrow, and now I'm going to use 4 as our denominator. Now you're going to ask me, Ms. Tolentino, what are going to be our new numerators? Well, if the number changes, the denominator changes from a 2 to a 4, the size of the pieces have changed. And what they're saying is, instead of it being 1/2, which is here are 2 pieces, 1 colored in, they now split it into 4s. And so they have 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces, so now you have more colored in. What you're going to ask yourself is, how did you get from the denominator of 2 to the denominator of 4? What did you multiply by? And if you need to use your cheat sheet, you can. How did we get from 2 to 4? We multiplied by 2. And so we're going to do 2 times 2 equals 4. Now if we did that to the denominator, we're going to do the same thing to the numerator. So for this first one, we did 2 times 2 equals 4. So we're going to do the numerator 1 times 2 equals 2. And you can see here, if you have half of something, and then you now made it into 4 pieces, you now have 2 of those pieces. What we're going to do at the bottom again is think, how do we get from 4 to 4? So how do we get from 4 times what number equals 4? 4 times 1. And if we did that to the denominator, we're going to do that to the numerator. 3 times 1 equals 3. And if you ask yourself, Ms. Solentino, this number didn't change, well, yes, because the denominator didn't change. But you could see this number changed because the denominator changed. From there, we're going to add up our answers. We're going to add the numerators, 2 plus 3, and we're adding because it says add here. Be careful because this lesson will teach you subtraction as well. And so if you don't pay attention to your addition and subtraction, you can get your answer wrong for that reason. So 2 plus 3 is now 5 pieces of the denominator stays the same. Their sizes are fourths. So here when we're adding fractions, we add the numerators together and we keep the denominators always the same. And I'll show you why in just a moment. Now that we got the answer of 5 fourths, we know that if the numerator is bigger than the denominator, the answer is larger than 1. And we learned from division in the last lesson that all you have to do is if the top number, the numerator, is bigger than the denominator, you'll put it inside the house. 4 times 1 equals 4, with 1 left over. And since you have nothing to bring down, the 1 becomes your numerator, and your outside number is your denominator, 1 and 1/4. Another way to think of that is 5 fourths is equal to 4 over 4, which is 1 whole, plus 1 over 4. 4 plus 1 equals 5, and so that means 4 over 4 is 1 whole and 1/4. So our answer could be either seen as 5 fourths or it could be seen as 1 and 1/4. Okay, these two are the same exact answer. For your work, I want you to show the equation written vertically. I want you to show what you're multiplying by to get your new denominators, which is your least common multiple. And then I want to see you simplify your answers. The last step I want you to do is to draw pictures for these. But we're not going to be using fraction strips at the moment. We're going to be using pictures, pie charts. So 1/2 means that you have 2 pieces. You're going to color in one of them. And 3/4 means you have 4 pieces. The denominator tells you how many pieces you have, and your numerator tells you how many color in. You have 3 of these. Now visually, if you were to add these two together, what you would do is you would have 1/2 already colored in. Then you would have 3/4. So if you imagine these into fourths, you'd have 1 piece, 2 pieces, and a 3rd piece. And you can see just from the picture alone that you have 1 whole and 1/4. So what you're going to do is you're going to draw the 1/2 and the 3/4, and you're going to visually add these up together, which is 1/2 and 1, 2, 3/4. And you can see that you have 1 and 1/4. Okay, I'm going to start number 2 now. As I do number 2, I'm going to start by rewriting this equation going vertically up and down. And so my first step is going to go 1/3 plus 1/4. And our next step is going to be circle our denominator. Now, is the denominator the top number, yes or no? You're correct, it's not. The denominator is the down number, it's the bottom number. So we're going to circle 3, and we're going to circle 4. Now with 3 and 4, we're going to find the least common multiple. So let's find the multiples of 3. The multiples of 3 will be, if you look at the cheat sheet for the 3's, 3 times 1 is 3. They're going to be the answers. So the first one is 3. 3 times 2 is 6. 6. 3 times 3 is 9. 3 times 4 is 12. 3 times 5 is 15. 3 times 6 is 18. 3 times 7 is 21. 3 times 8 is 24. We're going to do the same thing now. Now we chose the number 3 because the first denominator was 3. The next number we're going to choose is the next denominator, which is 4. And we're going to do the same exact thing. So the way that we're picking these multiples, what number to start with, is we're looking at our denominators. The first one told us to do 3. The second one's telling us to do the 4s. And so to find the multiples of 4, we're going to look at our cheat sheet. 4 times 1 is 4. 4 times 2 is 8. 4 times 3 is 12. 4 times 4 is 16. 4 times 5 is 20. 4 times 6 is 24. So, the first step is to list out our multiples of our denominators. Now we're going to find the ones that they have in common and underline them. Do they both have a 3? No. 6? No. 9? No. 12? Yes. 15? No. 18? No. 21? No. 24? Yes. So, the ones that they have in common include 12 and 24. Now we're going to circle the least one. The smallest number between the ones that we underlined is the number 12. They both have 12 and it's the smallest one. So the next step is our denominator is going to be 12. And our denominator is going to be our bottom number. Step 1, write it vertically. Step 2, circle the denominators. Step 3, list out our multiples. Find the smallest one. Use that as our least common denominator. Next step is a little tricky. You're asking yourself, how did you get from the circled 3 to the 12? And if you need to, you could use your cheat sheet. 3 times what number got us to 12? 3 times 4. So if we multiply by 4 at the denominator, 3 times 4 equals 12, we're going to do the same thing to the numerator. 1 times 4 equals 4. Likewise, to get from 4 to 12, we're going to figure out what we had to multiply. 4 times what number got us to 12? 3. 4 times 3 equals 12. If we do that to the denominator, we have to do the same thing to the numerator. And here we're multiplying the numerators 1 times 3, which is 3. Go ahead and pause and rewatch the video if you need to. Now our last step is to add. We have 4 plus 3, which is 7, and our denominator stays the same. 7 out of 12. And with 7 out of 12, 7, the numerator, is not bigger than the denominator, so the answer is less than 1. And there's no numbers to simplify, thinking that 7 divided by our multiples of 7, our factors of 7 and 12 don't have anything in common. So, last step is to draw the picture of it. So, if we're to draw 1/3, we would know that it looks like a Y. 1, 2, 3. And we have one of them colored in. If we have a 4th, it's like a plus sign. And we have 1 colored in. And if we were to visually add these two together, it would be less than 1. If we were to have, I'm not going to draw that bottom one because I'm going to color that one in. And about a 4th will probably look like, that Y should be a little bit bigger. If I were to do a 4th, it'd probably be about that much. And you can see here that's about 7/12. It's a little bit more than half. Okay? So these ones, the pictures themselves don't have to be that accurate. What I'm looking for is that it's less than 1 and it's a little bit more than half. Alright, so I hope that this helped. So I'm going to help you start off with the word problems, but I may or may not solve them for you. Alright, so let's take a little break and you can try doing 4 through 12. Number 13. Brandis bought 1/3 pound of ground turkey and 3/4 pound of ground beef to make sausages. How many pounds of meat did he buy? Now, sausages are like, hot dogs and things. They're those, pieces of meat. They tend to take different meats and kind of mash them together, almost like a patty and stuff. and then just make it in a cylindrical form. And so what they did here was they took two different types of meat. The first meat they took was ground turkey, so I'm going to put a T to represent the turkey. And the next one they took was ground beef. And what they did with the turkey and the beef is they mixed it together, and then they turned it into like sausages. The amount of turkey they had was 1/3 pound, and the amount of ground beef they had was 3/4. And what they did to these two types of meat was they added them together. They blended them together. They combined them. And so this will be the total pounds of meat. So this is our two parts, and when we add them together, we'll get the whole. And so this is our part whole picture. And all we're going to be doing is, since these are not the same numbers, we can't quite multiply, we'll just add 1/3 plus 3/4. And we're going to start this the same way that we started number 2, actually. Or is it number 2. We'll never find it. Because we actually do have the same denominators, 3 and 4. And after writing it up and down, we're going to circle our denominators. List out our multiples. We'll realize that 12 is what they have in common. And then you're going to ask yourself, 4 times 3. And the difference here is you're going to do 3 times 3, and your numerator will be 9 for this one. And this will again be 3 times 4. 1 times 4 is still 4. So you can see here that the 1/3 will still be 4/12, but this one will be different. 3/4 will now be 9. My video got slightly interrupted, so I'm not sure exactly where that sentence left off. But here, the 3/4 will slightly change, because when you multiply 4 times 3 at the bottom, when you do 3 times 3 on the top, it'll be 9/12. And so make sure not to get tricked a little bit. Slow down with your work. Now I'm going to start number 14. Last but not least, I'll help you start with the picture box for number 14. To make a ribbon and bow for a hat, Stacy needs 5/6 yard of black ribbon and 2/3 yard of red ribbon. How much total ribbon does she need? So it looks like she's making one of those bows for the hat, and she's going to do 2 different colors. And altogether, she's going to have 2 different color ribbons. So 1 color, 2 colors. She'll have a black ribbon, and she'll have a red ribbon. The black ribbon will be 5/6 of a yard. And the red ribbon will be 2/3 of a yard. And what they're going to be doing is they're going to be adding these two different colors together to figure out how much total ribbon she needs to buy. So the top will be the total ribbon of the black and red combined. So just as we're saying we're combining them, we're going to be adding them. 5/6 and 2/3. And since they're not the same number, it's not like we can multiply. And to start us off, just know we're going to circle our denominators. We're going to list out the common multiples for 6 and 3. Underline them and circle the smallest one. Use that as our denominator. Alright, so have fun. I hope that this helped. See you soon.